All right, so let's just get started with the ghost because that's one of the most important parts of not only Act 1, Scene 1, but also Act 1 and then the rest of the play too. Okay, so the first point I want to talk about with you, Mike, is, the whole situation surrounding the ghost. And really the first question on my mind when I read this whole play was, why did Shakespeare spend so long developing this ghost? I mean, we had to sit through about 4 or 5 pages of the play just to find out what happened with this ghost. And it could have just been like, well, hey guys, we just saw this ghost. It was crazy.
Yeah, all 3 of them.
That's
Why
right,
do you
yeah.
need to encounter each other and all that?
Yeah, what was the point of all of it? I mean, there must have been a point.
Yeah, and actually there is a point. Because Marcellus and Bernardo, these guys are guards. They're soldiers. So they're not very educated and they're very superstitious. Most people were quite superstitious back in those days. So the problem with this is that when superstitious people say that they saw a ghost, and you know them to be people who always talk about ghosts, they come off as biased people. You don't really trust them.
And also I remember reading that they've been working a lot lately, right?
Yeah.
As guards, on guard duty.
Yeah, they're working a lot. They're not getting enough sleep. It's really cold and it's really dark. It's a windy day. What happens when you hear the wind and you're superstitious?
And it's back in the day, and there's no
it's
electricity.
back in the day, no electricity. You're thinking, as a superstitious person, you're thinking, that must have been a ghost, right? So when they tell Horatio, who, by the way, is very different. This guy's a scholar. This guy's a person who learned a lot, right? Educated, right?
He's a nerd.
He's a nerd, exactly. He's got the right thing going, right? Now this guy, he doubts them right away. He says, tush, tush, 'twill not appear. He doesn't even think it's going to come out, even though they're so convinced, right? What does that do for us? Well, we start thinking, well, there we go. There's a commonsensical, logical person. I believe this guy now. And when we put our trust into this guy, what happens after that?
Well, I mean, I guess we would take his side.
We take his side, and then he sees the ghost.
So that's why Shakespeare did that.
Yeah, because there's a difference between Marcellus and Bernardo seeing the ghost, and you don't trust them. He's saying, okay, I know you don't trust ghosts, so I'm gonna let them show you the ghost first, and then I'm gonna put in Horatio. I'm gonna let him doubt you because I know all the audience is doubting you guys anyway. So we'll let the audience trust Horatio.
Okay.
And then when Horatio's converted, the guy who is really not biased when it comes to superstition, if anything, he's biased against it. And he totally changes his position around. And then he says, my goodness, I saw the ghost. Then we're starting to think, okay, this ghost, it really must be a real thing.
Wow. I didn't know there was so much behind it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And there's a lot of thought placed into how should I introduce these ghosts. And you also talked about they've been working a lot lately. It's been a really a dark, a windy day. It serves for the confusion of that, but it also serves for the backdrop of the situation. Why are they on guard, right? And what does that tell us about the political instability of the whole atmosphere?
The overall climate of the play, not weather, but the political climate, the emotional climate,
exactly.
The setting of the play.
Whether or not it's the weather.
Thanks.
Okay, so we know that we have 2 guards taking a look outside the castle, making sure that nobody invades. What's going on here? It's really tense. That's all I know.
Right, that's a good question. Yeah, there's a lot of tension, and it's only apparent in the beginning of the play because it's dark and spooky and windy, and there's talk about this ghost, and the guards are all asking questions about, whether they're okay or not. And we don't get too much about the political climate from that. And later on in the scene, we find out from Horatio that Denmark is currently at war.
Okay.
Now, they're not actively fighting right now, but they're getting prepared for war. And the reason is Denmark's old king, who passed away and might be the ghost, because the ghost was wearing that same armor that the king wore.
Yeah.
That king, King Hamlet, he's now dead.
Okay.
He went to war against Norway, and he took over Norway's lands. Now, they had a contractual agreement saying that whichever king won in battle, they would acquire the other's lands. And in this case, King Hamlet won.
Okay.
So
over Norway's.
Over Norway's lands.
Okay, all right.
So King Hamlet acquired all of Norway's lands.
Okay.
Now, this is supposed to be a contractual agreement, but King Hamlet's dead.
Okay.
So does that contractual agreement still stand? And this is kind of a good question
Between
because...
the sons of the two countries.
Right. Do they still
not.
have to honor that contract?
Yeah.
Right? And so what's actually happening is Fortinbras, who's Norway's son, he's actually gone against the contract.
Yeah.
And he's...
Or so the rumors.
So the rumors say.
Yeah.
He's gathered up this army and, you know, from the shadows, they're preparing to attack Denmark.
Yeah.
And so that's why Denmark's kind of in this really tense situation right now.
Yeah, and I think this is interesting. We can go a little bit more into it. We have Fortinbras, we have Hamlet. We have their fathers. They were kings, both of them dead from war. So obviously you would think that the two princes are going to take over their countries. But no, it's actually their uncles that are going to take over. You find out later on. But their uncles are going to take over. And on top of that, now you're in this situation where you hear about the fact that Fortinbras, even though his father lost, is rounding up an army to perhaps, you know, reclaim the land. So that tells you a lot about Fortinbras's characteristics, about his personality. This is really interesting because Fortinbras ends up being the foil to Hamlet. And a foil is when you create a character in such a similar situation to your main character. Our main character in this situation is Hamlet. You create Fortinbras as a character who is in such a similar situation, and you force the audience to see the differences between the two.
Interesting.
Because the only differences that can arise would obviously be from their personal qualities, right? It's kind of like if you're stuck in an elevator, one person's calm, the other one's having a panic attack. Same situation, same elevator, but totally different qualities. And it forces you to really narrow in on, okay, so those are the differences between these two people. But we only got to hear about Fortinbras. So it forces us to read more, right? Back in the day, it would be watching a play. So it forces us to watch more of that play and find out, okay, I have a feeling that Hamlet is going to be a little bit different from Fortinbras. I have a feeling. I want to watch more and find out. We do find out later on he really is quite a bit more of an introverted guy. A guy who likes to think about everything. Did I do it right? Should I have done it at this point? Should I do it right now or not? Right? And
Fortinbras, he's already taken up arms. I mean, according to
his
the rumors.
dad lost and he's still taking up arms.
He's just go.
Yeah. So when somebody's in the same situation as our main character, but he's already gone so far into one side, you imagine right away, okay, Hamlet's probably going to be the other side, but we're going to have to read to find out. Yeah.
So Hamlet, Fortinbras, placed in a really similar situation, but already we can see the differences.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I guess for our last point, I think what we should talk about is Shakespeare's use of synecdoche, which is a literary device. Dave?
When I first read this word, I thought it was synecdoche.
Okay, yeah. So synecdoche.
Yeah. So synecdoche is a term for a part of something representing a whole, or a whole representing a part of something. Now, if you don't know what that means, don't worry. I'll explain it with an example.
Okay.
Say you have a cat.
Okay.
Right, and this cat is very fat. So you have a fat cat. If I go over to your place and I see your cat, and I say, hey, what's up, fatty? To the cat.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Then that's the use of a synecdoche, because I'm using a part of the cat, which is his fatness, to describe the whole of the cat, which is, well, it's a fat cat. It might be orange, it might be brown, doesn't matter. I'm using one part of that cat to describe the cat's entirety. Okay?
So when you call it fatty, that you single out the one part, but you're referring to all of it.
That's right. I'm separating that one part and I'm using it to represent the whole.
Okay, so we just went over the part representing the whole, but what about the whole representing the part? Because you said the other way around is also synecdoche, right?
Yeah, this one's a little trickier, but it still makes sense once you follow it up with an example. So let's say we're watching FIFA World Cup and Brazil wins. Well, that's actually a synecdoche. Because
what do you mean?
Brazil, let's say Brazil won the trophy.
Yeah.
Right? But Brazil, the country, every single person in the country didn't actually win that trophy. The soccer team. The Brazilian soccer team won the trophy. Right? So we're using the whole to talk about a part.
Okay. And you're saying that is synecdoche as well?
That is also synecdoche.
Oh, okay. Remember to use synecdoche in class. This one is really special. You're gonna get your A+.
And remember, it's not synecdoche. Okay.
All right, guys. So that is a wrap up of Hamlet Act 1, Scene 1 analysis. And of course, if you guys like the video, please hit that like button. And if you have any questions to ask, use the comment section below because we do get around to trying to answer all of them.
And also make sure to subscribe because we're going to have more of these analysis videos coming for all the Shakespeare plays. As well, we're going to have math, physics, chemistry, you name it, we're trying to do it, guys.
All right, so we will see you guys in Hamlet Act 1.
Scene 2.